afternoon, financial professionals. My name is John Florence, and I'm Senior Vice President of Marketing here at E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you once again to another episode of The Brew, where we build relationships every week. Thanks for tuning in today. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. We'd like to start this brewcast by celebrating today's national days, as we always do. Today is Flag Day, if you weren't aware. First time the reason we celebrate Flag Day is Congress established the American flag on June 14th in 1777. And they declared that our flag should be 13 alternating stripes of red and white, with a field of blue with white stars representing each of the individual colonies set into that. And that has been our flag, or some iteration of it, ever since. Flag Day itself was actually established by Woodrow Wilson in 1916, and Congress cemented it in our nation's pantheon of holidays 33 years later in 1949. Today is also World Blood Donor Day, celebrating and reminding us of the importance and need for safe blood and blood products in our health system, and also as a means of thanking voluntary blood donors for their life-saving gifts of blood. I gave mine yesterday. You should go out and give yours today. And lastly, today is International Bath Day, which, contrary to what you might think, really has nothing to do with taking a bath as much as it is a celebration of the Greek mathematician Archimedes, who discovered the volume of an object by immersing it into a bathtub. We can also use it as a reminder that most of us probably need a bath at least once or twice a week. On today's brew, we get to welcome John Rafferty from Rafferty Annuity Framing as he presents a simple idea to help share the many roles that fixed indexed annuities with income riders can perform for your clients, no matter what the future holds. We've had Rafferty with us before on previous editions of The Brew, and so welcome back, John. It's really nice to see you again. And
thanks so much, John. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So before we get started with your chat, feel free, I want to remind everybody to feel free to please use the chat box to share your thoughts and questions. Also, all attendees are in a drawing for a CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card, which we'll be announcing at the end of the broadcast. Thanks for tuning in. So, John, welcome back. And I know that you are an absolute fan of the indexed annuity. We've had many, many conversations about this, and I love the perspectives that you are sharing both on your website and on your postings on LinkedIn and the various publications where your thoughts are being shared with the rest of the financial community. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us today. And I know that you're a little bit pressed for time, so I'm going to just be quiet here and tell us what it is that you've come to share with us this afternoon.
Sure, I'm going to get right to that, but the bath day thing, that's going to stay with me for a while. But what I was going to quickly note just before we get into the business at hand is that we've had a heck of a run in the market, as everybody knows, the last couple of months, kind of against all odds, right? And this would be a great time to remind clients who maybe bought a MYGA a year ago. Typically a 5-year MYGA a year ago was crediting about 375 as opposed to 5-ish today. And a year ago, you might have gotten 7.5 on an S&P cap, maybe 8. Well, guess what? You hit that cap today if you're crediting anniversaries today, because the S&P is up 16% year over year. And many of the volatility indexes out there, which have participation rates, have done even better. So it's a great time, I'd say, right about now to start seeing who's getting crediting in the next couple of weeks. It should be a happy conversation. And with that, let me get to my slides. And hopefully you can see them now, John.
Yeah.
All right. So you can see it says, how many hats does your fixed income wear? I came up with this concept probably a month or two ago. I've been thinking about it for a while, and really to keep things simple. Kind of a spoiler alert. What I thought I wanted to really explore a little bit was, income riders have really gotten rich and truly full of value in the last 18 months, given what's happened with rates. The withdrawal factors are looking really good. Some of the bonuses, premium bonuses and roll-ups look good. So you've got a great story to tell. I'm going to use one company's product as an example today, just because it's easier to give that example. But what I really wanted to have you think about was it's the optionality that these things produce that to me is so powerful. I have my roots in the mutual arena. And 25 years ago at my employer, then Mass Mutual, anything with an income rider was considered, considered anathema, right? We were only interested in pure mortality pooled solutions like DIAs and SPIAs. But again, the optionality these things produce, particularly at today's rates, is powerful. So let's take a look at how many hats does your fixed income wear. So we're going to do a little fixed income performance review. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but this is for the 150-year period going back to 1871. I pulled this off of a website called Lazy Portfolios ETF. Some of you may have seen it. It's a really rich site full of simple and easy to use data on all sorts of ETFs and histories and model portfolios. But long story short, the bond fund that they are quoting here is the Vanguard Bond Fund. I think it's called the Vanguard Total Bond Market ETF. BND is the symbol. And what I was interested in was the average performance over time. And I'm trying to throw out the 10-year performance because I think that was probably not going to be repeated. That's probably lower than it should be. 4 and change looks about right. So when you think about client portfolios and just a typical 60-40, 60 equity, 40 fixed income, 4 and change is probably around what people are expecting in terms of return going forward. That's fair, right? And so given that, the question is, what are you doing with that bond fund in your portfolio? And I guess my thesis is most people aren't using a bond fund in their accumulation portfolio for income needs. They're using it really to play the yin to equity yen, right? You're really trying to create a volatility hedge to equities. That's really all it's for. But in doing so, you are creating some compromises given what else is out there. And that's what I really want to talk about. What else is out there? So let's keep that 4.33 in mind. Let's keep that worst drawdown of 17% in mind. Okay. That's an equity-like drawdown during the pandemic period there that you see 17%. So I'm going to scroll down here. So again, here are the returns. What I'm trying to show is, let's say you had a client with a $1 million portfolio today, and you're trying to project out in 5 or 10 years what the fixed income piece of that portfolio will produce. I'm not including rebalancing here, just full disclosure, okay? This is just pure. What if of that $1 million portfolio, you put 400 grand into the Vanguard Total Bond Market ETF, BND, and it grew at the 4.33% growth rate that it's grown at over the last 30 years, okay? And so that 400 grand over the next 5 years, assuming a 4.33 compound annualized growth rate, would add about $94,000. Just under 500 grand. In 10 years, it would add 211 grand or 611. Okay. So those are kind of the expected results over 5 and 10 years. If you keep your money in the 40% component, and we'll use that BND as the proxy. Now let's scroll down. Let's say, okay, given that, what can you glean? What can you derive? What sort of value income-wise can you derive from that fixed income allocation of 40% or 400 grand if it grows at 5 or 10 years at 4.33%, right? I always tell my kids who hear many of my conversations, I say, guys, this is not complicated. I am using math that you learned in 5th grade, maybe 4th. I said, it's how I'm using the math to make the point and create a narrative. So let's just talk about 5 years of accumulation, 400 grand grows to 494. And let's just assume that this is the point at which a particular client who is allocated that way wants to start drawing down assets. And let's just say for fun that they're not drawing down from one balanced portfolio. They're drawing down separately from their fixed income and equity, and they're doing 4% maybe separately. But 4% of the 494 gets the client about $19,777 in initial annual income. Does that make sense? And if that were to grow at 3% for 10 years, right? Because that's the way that 4% withdrawal rule works, if you guys recall, right? It's take 4% of the initial portfolio value, and then each year thereafter, inflate the dollar value of that initial withdrawal by the rate of inflation, and we'll just assume it's 3% as the target rate, okay? So you might start out at just under 20 grand off your 494, and 10 years later, you'd expect you're probably close to 27 grand. All right, and you can see the same kind of numbers I put together for 10-year deferral. Okay, now let's compare and contrast these results with a different solution, a fixed income alternative, if you will, an FIA, right? You think FIA just stands for fixed indexed annuity? I say it stands for fixed income alternative as well. Let's look at an alternative. So now here we have a fixed indexed annuity from a really, really good carrier who you've all used. And I don't know, John, should I mention the carrier, not mention the carrier? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter, but if you want to mention it, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'll just tell you the carrier is Athene, and the product of Athene's is called Ascent Pro 7. Many of you have probably used it. Great product. 25% premium bonus right up front, 10% roll up, and then pretty healthy withdrawal factors. So if I allocated, by the way, spoiler alert again, I'm a big fan of volatility controlled indexes. So here's what I did here. Okay. Here's what I've brewed up. Here's my fixed income alternative. Instead of 400 grand into the Vanguard Total Bond Market ETF, what if I put it in Ascent Pro 7, leave the equity piece of my portfolio alone, but I put it in Ascent Pro 7 with plans to use it in the future, maybe for income, maybe not, but let's just take a look. I then allocated my 400,000 entirely to a 25% even slice, BNP multi-asset diversified 5 1-year, BNP multi-asset diversified 2-year, and then the same with the NASDAQ fast convergence, 1 year and 2 year, okay? So 25% each, 100 grand each goes into each of those indexes at the par rates that they currently have now. And then I actually ran an illustration, and I wanted to look at the worst 4-year return, right? So I'm really trying to underclub my assumptions here and go as conservatively as I can. So as you guys all know in those illustrations, they'll give you the best 10 years, the most recent 10 years, and the worst 10 years. I said, you know what, I'm going to lead with the worst 10 years because the most recent and the best almost look too good. With the worst 10-year performance with this particular allocation, my 400 grand grows to 486 after the fees, right? Because as you know, for this, for the income rider on that product, I think there's a 1% fee, something like that. So look at that 486. I'm pretty much in the ballpark of where my expected return is with a security, with a bond fund. So I got 486 over 5 years, and over 10 years, I got 592 versus 611. Here's where it gets interesting. Okay, here's where it gets really, really interesting. Now, if I want income, now let's just assume for the sake of argument here that I'm buying this annuity, Ascent Pro 7, at age 60. And I'm using joint lifetime withdrawal coverage, right? So again, I'm trying to be very conservative in my assumptions. A 60-year-old who bought AP7 is guaranteed. The 486 isn't guaranteed. It's just a worst case illustration for accumulation. But what is guaranteed is that cash flow right there. That 33.6 off of the 400 is guaranteed. So if I'm healthy, right, at age 65, 5 years henceforth, I have the right, my spouse and I have the right at age 65 to withdraw 33.6 per year for as long as either one of us are taking breath. What happens if we're confined to a qualified facility according to all the requirements of the contract rider for someone who can't perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living? This thing doubles. So my income, if I'm confined, meaning I have a care event, has doubled to now 67.2. Look at the 10 years. My income's 48 if I'm healthy, and 96 if I'm confined after 10 years. Again, compare those to these numbers here. We're talking about 4 times the income if confined than you'd get from the bond fund at the 4% withdrawal, right? Okay. So I'd like to say this. I'm going to wrap it up with this. Why put a cap on your portfolio's fixed income potential? Why put a cap on it, right? That's kind of a play on words, I guess. So here's what I say about these indexed annuities with income riders. And by the way, I know I'm featuring this particular product here, but this would apply to many, many indexed annuities with income riders. John and the folks at E4 know that, and they have a great lineup of products there. But you get accumulation potential that could be better or worse than fixed income. What I can tell you is the worst case accumulation will always be better than the worst case in a security like a bond fund, just by dint of the fact that it's not a security. But I think we just demonstrated that at today's par rates and with some of these products, I think we can probably produce, even after the fees, accumulation similar to what you'd expect in fixed income. Here's where you get the gravy. You get the income if healthy, which is guaranteed for life. And it's immune from poor sequence of returns risk, right? Which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Folks who started their income plans last year were probably not feeling good about things if they did not have the guarantees provided by products like this. And then finally, it can help protect the need to invade other assets for care needs, okay? Other assets. I just was talking to a friend of mine that I worked with earlier about a different project we may be working on. He's in the long-term care business. And I said, hey, I just came up with an idea. People shouldn't just be scared of bear markets. You ought to be scared also of care markets. What do I mean by that? I mean, you got a big hole in your planning if you do not have any preparation for what happens if you enter retirement when everything's roses and then there's a care event for one of two people in a couple. It can change everything. So got to prepare for that care market as well as a bear market. That's probably a little cuter than I'm usually willing to share, but I just thought I would. John, that actually sums up what I was going to share today. Okay, that really is the summary of all I had to say. I hope I met the time limit.
Yeah, for sure. And we've got maybe another minute or two here. I just commenting a couple of things, which I think is really quite to the point of what you're sharing, is that the confinement issue. I know one of the big concerns that many of our advisors have right now is exactly that, the cash flow problem that happens when a care event is needed, and the ability to be able to double withdrawal or get those kinds of multiples that you can with the lifetime income benefit riders seems like a great part of maybe a larger plan that a lot of clients probably need to put in place. I think the other thing that is interesting is just sort of this notion of that income rider on the indexed annuity being able to take the pressure off of the rest of the portfolio. We never know when we're going to have one of these sequence of returns incidences. We don't really know what the markets are going to hold. And like you say, a lot of it just seems crazy to me when you look at economic indicators versus what's happening in the markets right now and all the uncertainty going on. Why are we seeing another bull market is kind of a question mark to me. And when will that turn back around? And the ability to have these kinds of riders really takes a lot of that pressure off. So I don't know if that's you concur with that. If you have one quick second, I think one of the things in one of the slides you were showing the allocation that you were putting into the indexed annuity, and I look at some of these indexes that I'm sure that many of the advisors that listen to this are probably of the same mind. Like, I don't know what the BNP MAD 5 is. And I know that you look a lot into these kinds of what I would call bespoke indexes. Can you talk a little bit about those and what makes it interesting compared to just the straight old S&P 500 that we all know?
So BNP MAD 5 is run by the French money center bank BNP Paribas. MAD stands for multi-asset diversified. So the constituents within that index are Japanese equities, European equities, US equities, US fixed income, and commodities, to name a few, with a volatility target of 5%. That index is up year to date. If you bought an indexed annuity with that index on January 1st this year, it's up right now, I believe, 5.8%. Okay. Now, if you bought it on January 1st this year, which I did, I bought the accumulation product from Athene. So my participation rate's is 255% for the 1 year crediting and 360 for 2 years. So I feel good about that. I feel even better about the NASDAQ. That thing is up, believe it or not, just shy of 15% year to date. And that's a volatility controlled index. Now it's a higher target. It's 12 instead of 5, But the point is, it's in the wrapper of a non-security, right? So let me put that all in perspective. If you bought the S&P on January 1st and you had a 10% cap, guess what? You're already at the cap. You just hope it holds until you get crediting on January 1 of 24, right? If you bought either of these indexes, if everything froze in place and they neither went up or down and you simply multiplied it by the par rate on January 1st of 24, you're going to crush the S&P. Furthermore, what you get with these par rate indexes, John, is they're not done growing. You get the whole year, right? There's no cap. You get the whole year to see what they can do. I hope they keep going. It is going to be, I think, an exciting time to talk about these things in 7 months, 6 months.
Really fascinating. I'd love to have you come back sometime and let's dive more deeply into these bespoke indexes, because I think it's one of the areas of indexed annuities that is really going generally unexplored by a lot of advisors. And I think there's a lot of value to learning more about that. And I know you.
I think they're to your point, John. I think they're a heavily underappreciated gift, and they are cloaked in far too much cynicism. Some of it possibly earned, but I think the cynicism is preventing them being taken advantage of the way I'm going to.
Yeah, fair. Listen, thank you very much. And I know that you have another obligation that you need to run off to. So if you need to cut out, that's great. Otherwise, I ask you to do one thing, pick a number between 1 and 20 so that we can get our winner today.
19.
A winner today of our giveaway is Lenora Pella. So Lenora, congratulations. Be on the lookout for a complimentary CE voucher and Starbucks gift card that'll be coming your way from all of us here at E4 Insurance Services. We ask you to join us next week as we welcome E4 Insurance's Doug Twitty, who is our Director of Annuities. Doug is going to be sharing with attendees how to give your annuity sales a boost and provide more visibility to your clients by running a tutorial run-through of how to quickly find the best MYGA or best income annuity option for your clients. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you all again next week on The Brew.